Hey guys and gals, welcome back to the channel. So I'm answering a question you guys have asked me quite a lot, which is, why haven't I bought a Grand Seiko yet? And a lot of you guys that were following my Instagram account noticed that I had been, looking at ADs and looking at some of these things. And truth be told, about 2 months ago, I came ludicrously close to buying a Grand Seiko GMT high beat. And I didn't, obviously. And I ended up taking that actual money and ended up buying the Panerai PAM 287 that you've seen on the channel. So a lot of you guys are asking me why I made that decision, since you guys know that I have such a love for Seiko. So this is kind of my explanation to you guys as to why I did or did not actually end up buying, that Grand Seiko. Now, customary wristwatch check. I'm not going to tell you guys what this is. We're going to test your watch knowledge today. This actually has a column wheel and it has a vertical clutch system. This is considered the first chronograph to ever use a vertical clutch system. They kind of discovered it, all in-house movement, and then it kind of gotten forgotten. Then sooner or later somebody else realized it and ended up capitalizing on it. So this is a vintage chronograph with both a column wheel and a vertical clutch system. And it's been on my channel, I've talked about it, and hint, it's actually hidden in some of my older Instagram posts as well. So Instagram link is somewhere below on the description of this channel so you guys can figure it out. But yeah, amazing bit of technology considering how old this watch is. This watch is from the 40s at this point, so bit of trivia for you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and discuss what happened. So a couple months ago, I visited a Grand Seiko boutique, and just point in time for me, I had just had the issues with my SARB 35, which is on the channel, and you guys, if you know anything about Seiko, know that SARB is kind of the ultimate JDM Seiko right now in terms of hotness factor. Everybody wanted one of them, and to this day, I still say it's one of my favorite watches I've ever owned, and as you guys probably know, if you've been following me, mine broke. And I'm not really sure quite what all resulted in its failure. Somehow the hairspring ended up disabling itself and falling off the balance wheel. Your guess is as good as mine, but the watch is toast. It's not worth getting fixed at this point. Some of you guys also talked about them having issues with like the Type-C balances. Regardless, when I visited this AD, the SARB had literally just ended itself, and so that was kind of in the back of my mind. But as you guys know, I love Seiko. So I visited the boutique, and I was legitimately considering, and I say legitimately, I was about 99% sure I was going to leave this boutique with a Grand Seiko. I've been building it up in my mind. I've been talking myself into it. I've talked about Grand Seiko in the past and the reasons why I was going to avoid them, but I got more and more into the brand. My fascination with Japan has only gotten stronger and stronger, and I was convinced I was going to buy one. And I went into the boutique with, largely an intent to buy one, and I didn't. And so why didn't I? Well, truth be told, two things. In the boutique, and I'll just start throwing up some images of some of the watches I looked at in there. I finally got a really good look at the high beats, and I really took a good look at those. And I also got a good look at the Grand Seikos that use the spring drive movements. And I talked about in past videos how I didn't think spring drive was for me. I didn't like the idea of kind of this mesh between mechanical and quartz. And I really hoped too, when I was in this boutique, that I would end up convincing myself that I feel different. And truthfully, I didn't. So I spent a lot of time with the Snowflake model in particular, a watch which to this day I think has the best dial on any watch I've ever seen. It's beautiful. But I have to say, in holding it and looking at the spring drive movements, I was underwhelmed. And it's not because they're not technically masterpieces, it's because they just didn't have that soul to them that I wanted. I looked at the back, the escapement running at a constant rate. I didn't get the same sense of like the heartbeat of the watch. I felt like I was holding more of a calculator than this kind of living, breathing thing, which I know a watch isn't. The mechanical watches to me are very much kind of poetic. And, holding one of these spring drives, I totally understand, the high quality of finishing, the high precision you're getting, and I totally respect the technology behind them. But in my wrist, looking at it on my wrist, it just left me cold. It's very much, I kind of relate this back to cars too. A lot of you guys that know me know that there's a lot of modern cars I absolutely hate, and I very much prefer older cars. I prefer cars with quirks. I don't like all these stupid systems. I don't like, the first thing I do when I get in a car is I shut off stability control and traction control. And so a lot of you guys that know me in real life know that I don't really like modern cars that well, which is kind of becoming annoying because I'm sooner or later I have to keep buying new cars. I'm very much old school. I don't like all these extra computers in the car. I very much like being part of the machine. When I get in my cars, I shut the traction control off. I shut the stability control off. I like being part of the machine. You know, I hate, you know, electric steering these days. I miss the hydraulic systems. I don't want blind spot monitoring. I don't want, you know, I don't want all this stupid stuff. I don't want collision avoidance systems. I don't want self-driving modes. All that stuff to me is just, I feel like cars are losing their passion. I love manual gearboxes, and I relate all this stuff, same thing with mechanical watches. As much as I love rolling the gears in a mechanical transmission versus having like a dual clutch, even though I know a dual clutch is faster and better on a racetrack and all that, I love the connection between the man and the machine. I love seeing the old school mechanics at work. And the spring drive for me, as much as I respect it, as much as I know that it's a superior technology, it doesn't speak to me. It just leaves me completely cold, and I respect it again immensely, but I don't want it on my wrist, and it just doesn't do a thing for me. And when you're spending $5,000-$6,000 on a watch, you know, that passion, that connection has to be there. And you know, that's part of the reason why that Panerai that I ended up buying has actually been a surprise to me, because I bought that watch strictly on passion, not on mechanicals. I mean, that watch is extremely basic, the Panerai. It's got the basic 7750 movement. There's nothing to write home about it. But it has the Italian flair and panache about the design about it, and it has, you know, just kind of a rugged old utilitarian movement. And because of that, I was able to bond with that, even though, you know, the spring drive is superior to the Panerai, in my humble opinion, immensely in every aspect. I couldn't love the spring drive. And so the spring drive was out, and honestly, when I wanted to go look at them, I figured I would actually end up settling on like a high beat Seiko. And the surprise to me was I really expected there to be that much more of a jump between like an entry-level SARB line watch and a Grand Seiko. And in the flesh, I really didn't get that sense of specialness over the SARB. You know, I looked at quite a few of them, and they're fantastic watches. They're extremely well finished. You know, the little GS symbol on the buckles, looking at the finishing on the movement. Clearly, they're done to a higher caliber than the SARB is, or any of these, you know, Sarks mid-level JDM watches are. However, to me, the delta in price does not justify the difference. To me, the SARB is about 95% the same feel in the hand as one of these Grand Seikos is, with either the 28,000 or the 36,000 beat per hour movements. And because of that, I just couldn't warm up to the idea. And it's actually, I kept trying to talk myself into it, because I really, really, really wanted to have one, and I really, really wanted to want to have one. And I mulled it over for a couple days, and as much as I wanted to have one, and as much as I really like the idea of having one, I just could not warm up to the idea of spending $3,600, $4,500, $5,500, etc. on one of these watches that, while they're technically brilliant and masterfully finished, doesn't feel, in my humble opinion, and again, feel free to disagree with me, doesn't feel like it's that much more special than a $350 SARB 35, for example. And that's kind of where I feel like I got stuck. I think if I'd never experienced some of these JDM watches, I think I would have never had that issue, and I would have bought one on the spot. And in comparison to their competition, you know, Rolex's, Breitling's, Omegas, I think they definitely justify the price tag. I think the biggest issue is I think Seiko just makes too good of a watch at a lower price point that I just can't justify it. If all I had to choose from were the generic, you know, quartz gold-plated watches that I grew up with Seiko in the 90s, and it was either that or a Grand Seiko, the Grand Seiko would, you know, leaps and bounds justify the purchase over those basic Seikos. But nowadays we have access to so many highly decorated, highly finished, you know, I was just talking, you know, recently a couple of videos ago about the Sumo versus the Monster, and how Seiko is so masterful at doing these balances between brushed and polished surfaces that you can get the kind of detailing on a Sumo or a SARB that once you get to that much higher of a price tag, yes, you're paying for a difference, and yes, the manual labor, the hand assembly, all this stuff sure adds value to the watch, but the specialness factor, which is something you really can't put words to, it's just kind of that X factor to me wasn't there. And so that, in short, is why I did not buy a Grand Seiko. And again, I ended up settling, I say that as I'm sure you guys would feel that way, for the Panerai 287, which, as I'll totally admit here, is a vastly inferior watch to the Grand Seikos that I looked at in that boutique in terms of finishing, in terms of innovation, I mean, all across the board. And I mean, the dial on the Panerai, I love it, but it has nothing on, for example, the Snowflake dial, you know, on a Grand Seiko. So there you go, guys. There's why I don't own a Grand Seiko. I'm not saying I'm definitely out of the running of buying one. I still wouldn't be surprised, but that's the reality of it. I went in fully expecting to walk out of the store with one, and I couldn't convince myself. I didn't feel the amount of specialness that I wanted to feel when I held the watch. And it's kind of funny, as I get older in my watch collecting habits, how I get more into the emotional connection to the watch than the value. And I know if you guys have been following me for a while, I've always been about value for money. What's the best value in terms of, finishing and mechanicals and everything you can get for the money. And now I've discovered, with my Panerai and my love occasionally for Breitlings too, that sometimes it's not so much about the parts, it's about how it makes you feel and bonding with it. So there you go, guys. Hopefully that, answers the question for you. Now, I'd really be curious what you guys think. I know Grand Seiko is kind of a polarizing brand. It's one of those things that you either theoretically get it or you don't. And so I'd love to hear what you guys' perspective. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Was I silly in not buying a Grand Seiko Snowflake example when I could have had one of those ones that when I bought this used Panerai? Was that a mistake? What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. So one other quick thing, I know you guys are asking me what I thought of Basel. There was so many videos on YouTube littered with people's feedback on Basel. Frankly, I like doing videos on my own. I'm not really trying to do what's trending and stuff. I'm not looking to get the most views. This is more of kind of a watch vlog, but I want to inform guys, and gals like you guys are just, make sure you guys don't make the same mistakes that I've made. Basel this year, my top pick by far, and it's probably the only Rolex that I love that it'll have awful resale. I may be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. It's part of a line that Rolex has traditionally had awful resale on and terrible sales in general, and it's part of the Cellini line, and that's the new moon phase. The original moon phase Rolexes from the 50s, 54, somewhere around there, those things command crazy value on the used market. We're talking seven-figure value, and I was really excited to see that Rolex brought it back. Now, $26,000-ish for one of these things is going to be nuts. But I'm really hoping nobody buys one and the value plummets and I can pick one up secondhand. I really lust after that watch, just as I would lust after the Cellini Prince, which I've debated for years too about buying. So that was my pick for Basel. Lots of really cool watches at Basel this year. I was paying attention to it somewhat. There's some beautiful historic styled Omegas coming out. Vintage is still apparently very much a thing. I really appreciate them. Seiko had some cool launches as well, but the one that really stole the show for me was the Rolex Cellini Moon Phase. That watch just has the it factor for me, and I want one so bad. And I would love to see Rolex branch out and kind of challenge Patek 2 on more of a dress watch aesthetic. I just don't know if their core audience is going to appreciate and respect them for that, but I really hope it does well. Actually, I hope it does well because I want to pick one up used. But that was my pick of the show, guys. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate you guys so much. I read your comments. I get a chance to respond to them all. Please forgive me on that. I know I've been busy. I know I've been a little absentee on YouTube, and thank you for your patience. I'm in the middle of transitioning careers, as it were, and I'm going to try something new in my life that I've been thinking about for a while. So I've been a little busy, and I appreciate you guys respecting that. As always, if you appreciate this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you like what you've seen, you haven't already, please subscribe. Somewhere around me you can do so. And thank you guys so much. You're awesome. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Take care.